You are listening to the ReRACEables podcast. Hello and welcome back to the ReRACEables podcast. I'm joined here tonight by Nicole and Lizzie, and we're going to jump right into it because Lizzie did not watch the teaser for next week's episode. And Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, that was the most exciting part of the entire episode.
It was.
Nicole,
And that doesn't say much about the episode. It wasn't a great episode.
Okay, thank you. I agree. I'm glad I'm not alone on that. Just to start
But the teaser. I kind of like just leaving Lizzie in suspense.
I have to agree. It's pretty great. And this is not planned. So we appreciate this little nugget here. But Lizzie, there is a teaser that's out there that you can all go and see. It's all live now. It's somebody test positive for COVID.
No.
Any preliminary guesses who we think it is?
I have a guess.
Let me think.
Go ahead, Nicole.
I think it's Claire.
She's a problem.
It wouldn't be the first time she let her partner down.
Wait. I want to try and make an educated guess. I guess my educated guess would have been...
Are you trying to think of like, oh, who do I see most often with their mask on in the taxis? And
yeah, that could be it, right? I mean, it's hard to make a guess.
You could get it anyway. It could be anything.
Well, I mean, yeah, also an educated guess would have been watching the teaser. So there's no way for me to have done that.
I mean, you don't know what goes on that's not on camera, what goes on at the hotels, who they're in contact with, how many of the crew is in close contact with them, and then what is the crew in close contact with?
It's hard to say. It's hard to pinpoint anything. We don't really see any clues. As far as what we see, each team is accomplishing each task individually. Even this whole episode was outdoors in a desert, basically, in Jordan. Everything seemed to be kind of an open air and all of that. So it must be something behind the scenes that we don't get to see in the edit. That has to be maybe part of it, but I still got to believe that all of these teams are in the same area, in the same place, staying at the same hotels, especially they're on this Amazing Race plane. It's not like there's more people that some team is seeing than another team per se. I feel like they're all kind of in this contained bubble in each city so far. So this kind of makes me freak out that, like, what would they do if 4 teams got it? Can they shut down production? Can they postpone production?
Well, we've seen them do it before. I mean, they literally did it last season.
Yes, but remember that was at the very beginning of the whole thing. This is now further down the line.
And it wasn't, oh, someone tested positive. Like, we've never had that before.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Like, it shut down because there was a pandemic happening. It wasn't shut down because somebody tested positive.
Maybe the person that tested positive was Sharik, and that's why she's been acting like such a drag for the last 2 episodes. And then she gets sent home, and then that's why nobody else has to quarantine and everyone can just move on with their lives because the problem is out. And then they can just move on.
I don't want to wish COVID on anyone, but that would be the most non-heartbreaking outcome of this, because the way I'm reading it is that somebody's about to get yanked from the race.
Yeah.
Are you guys reading it that way?
Yeah. Like, I don't see any other option except for to pause the whole thing for, 2 weeks and then have them continue on?
And that just doesn't seem plausible.
I could see them sooner bringing back an already eliminated team to take their place.
Like, is Sharik coming back?
No.
She don't want to. She wants to stay home.
I think we all want her to stay home at this point. I think that their time was due. And let's go to that part. Linton and Sharik, they finished last place. They are eliminated. Was this their time to lose?
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Sharik wanted to go home last week. she was like hoping. And then she found out that Rich and Dom were behind her. She was like, ugh, I guess I'll stay. Like, get out of here. That's my opinion.
I agree. It's very, very difficult to watch people on this once in a 100 million lifetimes experience just give in and quit and want, or even mention quitting and mention going home and mentioning wanting to not be there for any reason. It just seems, it's such a bad look. It's such a bad look. I don't really root against anybody this season so far, but it just did make me kind of as happy as you can be to see a team go home at this point was with them.
Yeah.
Plus, I think it's their time. I think that I didn't see them being long for the race ever from the beginning of meeting them. The dad is older, the daughter's younger. The father-daughter teams don't necessarily have the greatest success always. But add in the events of the last 2 weeks, and especially last episode, this seems like they were destined to go home this episode.
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed. It was their time, and it played out how it should have.
So Linton and Sharik are our team going home. A little bit of a mix-up at the top of the leaderboard here after the 5th episode. We had Lewis and Michelle take home 5 Gs and win episode 5, leg 5 of the race. And Derek and Claire find their way back up into the top 2. 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we had Michael and Marcus, Abby and Will, and Emily and Molly. Anything to read into those standings? We saw the 2 favorites from the previous episode kind of fall. Other new people emerging. Another team that we had seen at the top in the beginning. Derek and Claire come back up to the top. Anything to really take away from the standings of this race, this episode?
I think I underestimated Team Coquetas. I like them much more than I thought I would. They're
Same.
less irritating than I thought they would be. They're more capable than I thought they would be. They seem like a pretty strong team now. For now.
Agreed. I think in the first leg we saw some aggression with them when they were trying to like saw the tree.
Yep.
The tree trunk when they were trying to slice some of that off. And I remember thinking, this is exactly how I thought they were going to be. They're going to be too aggressive with each other. They're going to be their own demise. They're going to be out of here. But then this episode, we learn a little bit more. We know that they're trying to like have a baby after this and that they're so solid and locked in with each other. And I was like, oh, okay. I probably could have ranked them higher than I did, but this is the kind of stuff that makes it fun to watch the season for, the surprises. So the people that you don't think are going to be as good as you think they are. Also, Emily and Molly.
Are we getting nervous, a fellow low ranking of Emily and Molly people here?
I know Nicole and I both have them ranked dead last. I'm like, how do they keep being good at things? I don't know.
Not too nervous. I ended last week in 1st place. I'm probably not still in 1st place after this past week, but I'm not nervous.
Well, I'm glad to have company in my 12th place ranked team is potentially one of the best, if not the best team in this season. Wouldn't that be interesting if both Emily and Molly and Michael and Marcus made it to the final and we all squared off for loserdom or whatever you want to say, or just who's going to look the stupidest. But I was really glad that Emily and Molly are pretty good because you guys would all look stupid and not me. And I had them the highest ranked. Not really that high, but I had them 8th, but that was the highest. I expected this out of Lewis and Michelle. I think they had a great energy from the video. They're in shape. They clearly love each other. They have a great relationship. And I think the thing that stands out most about them is that they're having fun with this. I think that they're not taking it so serious, yet they are super competitive. And I think that that's important to have some sort of balance in those 2 things. And I think that they're rewarded for it in this episode. And I was happy to see them take 1st place and win that $5,000.
I will say the same for Quentin and Maddie. I think they're having a great time. And I think that Abby and Will are also having a good time. And even if they are stressed out about things, they are not really showing it and they're not letting it get to them, which I really admire.
Are we placing value on having a good time?
No, we're just talking about it.
I think it does play a role though at 9 teams is still left, right? I think the biggest factor of Linton and Sharik is she didn't want to be there. From what we can see, that's a huge factor in all of this. You can only imagine, like, Linton must have spent that whole night or period of time between Florence and Jordan, just like walking her down the ladder and being a great dad. And that's, Linton's awesome. And Sharik is too. Just, maybe running around the world, it's just not meant for everybody to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think having a good time is like obviously not something that I would peg for like a competitor or a super fan or somebody who's really intent to win the season. But watching this particular cast in this particular season, it seems to be a through line with people who are doing well.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So that's just in response to you, Nicole, by like asking that question. And I'm glad that you did because I think it's a question worth asking. But I think it's very unique to this season. It's like the people who are literally just having fun and not stressing about it are the teams that are doing better. And there might be some truth to that in past seasons, but it really stands out, I think, in this season. So
Did Derek finally show up and be the guy that you thought he was going to be in this episode?
I think so. I also think that treasure digging challenge on the movie set was not very hard. A lot of people did not seem to have trouble with it. So I don't know if he like overcame this big hurdle and was like this amazing guy who did this amazing thing, or if he just like did a thing. But the bar was so low that we were like, wow.
Yeah. But again, I think we all had him and Claire because they were on Big Brother as more in the strategy category at the top, kind of. And it was, again, we're going to go to this right after about this episode in general. But in this episode, to see somebody recognize a small advantage that needed to be exploited, I thought was big, especially with the eventual demise that being the last team at the metal detectors really put the kibosh on Linton and Sharik, right? Derek is able to recognize that. He's able to say, okay, there's only 4 of us left, and there's only going to be 4 of these things buried still. And I need to literally muster the strength and the endurance here to just sprint all around this little desert UFO site and find this damn thing. Because this time that I'm going to spend going balls out is going to be able to make up other time and not let us fall on our face and be here for a half hour and maybe be out of this thing.
Yep.
I don't think I would have thought to sprint with the metal detector. I don't know, I thought it was kind of clever.
Exactly.
Usually you see people walking with a metal detector and they never have any sense of urgency, people who are metal detecting on a beach, but it's not what you typically think of how to use a metal detector, and yet he thought of it, he got to it before the other people, it worked.
Everybody's walking in the game in terms of strategy, right? Everybody's walking, but Derek in that instance was running in terms of strategy. And I think I know that's what I wanted from Derek and Claire as a team. And it's nice to see them flex that experience muscle that they have literally competing on reality shows before this. Okay, so we mentioned it at the top. This episode sucked, right?
Can I tell you my issue with the opening?
We'll start there. Go ahead.
They all go on to the same plane, and then it's fast forwarded onto everybody's hunky dory on a train. And I just kept thinking, like, why are they all riding a train together? How come they're not racing? Like, why are they all together at the same time? There's no scattered, nothing. They're all just enjoying a train ride together. Where is the urgency? Where is the strategy? Where is the fighting? Where is the alliance making and alliance breaking? There was none of that. They're just like enjoying this dramatic show of men on horses. It was just like, why?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah, if I was like between seasons 1 and 10 contestant, seeing that now, I'd be so mad.
Why?
Because the game has changed. It seems easier by doing that. There's an entire element you're missing that takes strategy, that takes endurance, that takes being smart, that takes communication, that none of these teams right now in this season have to do at all. But they still get to go do the challenges. That's half of the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same at all.
I'm glad that in the teaser for next week, again, it said, you know, they're going to have to deal with Arabic and interpreting signs that are all in Arabic. Okay, good. Let's give them some challenge.
Yeah, just a byproduct of being literally in a different country, which so far it seems like they all could have just been in like Nebraska. You wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I agree. I think the opening really set a tone of what the hell is actually happening here. Why are we watching this movie scene reenactment? I think it also points back to the whole where's the airport competitiveness where people can get lost, people can lose a lot of time. We're not seeing, get on bus one and bus one leaves at 8 o'clock, and then the next one leaves 40 minutes later, and the next one leaves 40 minutes after that. And it creates this giant separation. And then kind of that all aboard on the airplane that they all happen to make it in time. If they did, great. If not, you're way behind. Like all that is just negated. And they're all just starting with a 15-minute gap in between the groups. And it just seems like then the challenges were kind of easy, like the roadblock for the first few teams. It was like Michael and Marcus there for like 3 minutes, right? Like there's no way that them or Emily and Molly are losing their lead. So they're going to remain front runners throughout the whole episode. I just really, I wrote down, is this too easy? And like, I think that really just contributed to my whole feeling. Like, this episode kind of sucked. And what I did like, and maybe this is part of it because they did play this up in the beginning, is that this is the first time they went to Jordan, the Kingdom of Jordan, which seems really awesome and really beautiful. And you heard a lot of, oh my gods, when they got to that temple or that museum in Petra. And you heard people really kind of say and echo the sentiment of, got to look around, enjoy this, and take in the sights and different things like that, which is always great to hear. And as a person I don't know that I'll ever get to Jordan, it is nice to be able to see the country in some way, shape, or form through the show. That's one reason why I love watching the show, right? But I mean, how much of the scenery can you really take in and use as okay, I saw a piece of Jordan today, versus the challenge, the roadblock was so simple. It got harder as you went on. It was just Sharik complaining. And then it was an easy detour kind of choice. And only one team did this. And it was all kind of contained and made me think, like, did they just build that little village in the desert and just pretend it was a market? Like, was that really a market? Maybe it was, and I look stupid right now, but I don't know. It seemed like it could have been just totally fabricated because they're in the middle of a desert and like, I don't know.
I don't know. It seems to me like and I'm sure I also probably sound ignorant, but it seemed to me that there was this big giant, like they said, seventh wonder of the world, essentially, to go and look at. And I noticed that there were like other white people who were tourists that the Amazing Race contestants were like going up and talking to because they spoke English. And
Yeah.
so I think all the shops that were outside probably know that that's a big tourist place, and so they have set up shop there. So I don't even know if that's a village either. Again, ignorant. I have no idea anything about Jordan, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if like the people of Jordan were like, look, tourists are gonna come and look at this seventh wonder of the world. Let's, also have them buy baskets and like set up a little shop. But I don't know if that means that it's a town. But I did notice a lot of other tourists that were there. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, how much access do they have, and well, why have they never gone to Jordan before? Like, I'm not a Jordan historian, so I'm not really sure why they've never been there, but maybe the only access they could really get was to that desert area where that temple was, and they had to really kind of contain it to that whole piece of it.
Or
And yes,
more
it's
of like
cool.
the Hollywood piece of Jordan,
Yeah.
where they've filmed movies and stuff before.
If there's any Jordan historians out there, we'd really love to know. Any listeners?
Yes, please. Please
Excellent.
comment below what we're missing and
Yeah,
help us fill in the
reach
gap.
out to us, educate us, because we don't know.
One last thing with the formatting, because there is no airport and everybody's getting on the same plane and starting in intervals 10, 15 minutes or what have you. Does it seem like it's really hard to move up and really catch teams or really pass teams and create any distance? It seemed to me like it would be really hard for Michael and Marcus to kind of fall out of first place. And
Something's gotta happen, like a flat tire or something like out of their control to set them back, I think.
Yeah, that kind of thing has been the great equalizer of this show for its existence. And so you always kind of hope that something like that happens to the teams that are just dominating. I also feel like people have been moving up and down, whether it's from, like fourth to sixth is not a huge difference. But I feel like Emily and Molly did not start out strong, and now they're one of the strongest teams. Do you know what I mean? So I do think that there's movement. It's not drastic, but I do see it happening. Or like Linton and Sharik, I feel like started out kind of strong. They tanked. They had like a downwards decline. And we saw it in the last episode. I could tell that they were on their way down. And sure enough, they crashed this episode. So I do think that there's movement. It's just not quite as dramatic as we're used to seeing.
yeah, I think my issue maybe is then related to how contained everything seems to be in each leg of the race, right? It's one city, and even in this, they're getting driven. The car is right there. They didn't have to flag for a taxi or anything. And they're getting driven pretty much around right to where they needed to go. And there was only one stop to go from the desert to Petra, and then everything else was in Petra. And it was, if you're Molly and Emily, you make that one wrong turn to find the temple, and then all of a sudden, or to find the puzzle, and all of a sudden you're caught up. Everybody's caught up with you. It's all right. So let's close out then on the detour. We had Camel Caravan and we had Palace Puzzle. It seems like the better choice was Palace Puzzle.
I was impressed with Lamumba for immediately surveying what was entailed for the caravan, and then being like, nope, it's too much, let's go. And that was it. And that was the right move on their part.
Could you see that being maybe the downfall of a Michael and Marcus, where they didn't choose to do something and switch at the right time to go do the easier one, and maybe they could get caught? I'm thinking of like that watermelon stacking one that almost ousted Gary and D'Angelo once upon a time, something like that.
I mean, it depends how bad their puzzle skills are. If they know that they're really bad at puzzles, but they are physical guys, then maybe it is the right choice that they stuck with that.
I guess you can tell that I'm really trying to see how they can be out of this, and then my rankings won't go completely in the dumpster.
And so
But
that I say, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
yeah, it's gonna be all good, right? All right. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll be back next week to talk about episode 6 of the ReRACEables podcast. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel to find all previous episodes. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We appreciate all your support. Updated power rankings coming at you right now.
Power rankings look a lot different this week. With Linton and Sharik going out, I'm now in first place, having lost 10 off my score to be at a low of 46 points. Nicole had Linton and Sharik second, so she takes a big hit there, but she's still second with 48, and then Jeremy and Lizzie are close behind with 49 and 50 points.
And
we'll see you next week on the ReRACEables podcast. The blog has spoken.